Well, Happy New Year, everybody. We made it. Although 2025 has been off to a rough start, to say the least. I mean, natural disasters abound. But one thing that I notice about the human spirit, we don't give up. We're fighting. Even when Mother Nature says, hey, I'm going to throw everything I got at you, from the East Coast to the West Coast of the United States and around the globe. Mudslides, floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, wildfires, you name it. The spirit, the human spirit, doesn't give up. Although, what about music? It's really hard sometimes. I know. I have a good buddy. He used to have this old email. I don't know if he has it anymore, but this was back in the day of AOL. And it was music stuff at AOL.com. So you could read it as music stuff or music's, like with an S, tough, Tuff. I always interpret it as music's tough, like music is tough. Mike Florio, if you're listening, big shout out, my brother. Amazing drummer, manager, and thinker. But we would always talk about how difficult music was. This was back in the late 90s. And then we entered into the 21st century, and it just keeps on progressively getting worse or more difficult. And now with the advent of AI, well, yeah, you should definitely give up. So, why should you quit music? And how can you not quit music? Let's talk about that today on the Career Musician Podcast, episode 172. My name is Nomad. If you don't know me, you can check me out at nomadsplace.com. I've been in the biz for over 30 plus years as a professional musician, or what I like to call a career musician. I've had a couple little day jobs. One really was the bagel shop that I worked at in Nashville, Tennessee. I was determined. I wasn't going to give up. I moved from New York to Florida with my folks, then from Florida to Nashville to pursue being a studio musician. When I first got there, I didn't know anyone, right? So it was easy to say, this is too hard. Nashville, Music City, USA, Guitar Players Central, and I'm a guitarist. I'm like, I could have easily quit, but I didn't. I got a job at a bagel shop. I'm from New York after all. I love a good bagel, yeah? So I went to work from 5 a.m. to noon every day and then come home, take a little nap. But then again, I might not have. I was in my 20s. Sure, I had a heck of a lot more energy. Depending on how I felt, do some work at home in my little home studio. At that time, I had a Roland hard disk recorder. I can't remember the model, but let's talk about it in the comments. Let me see if I can find it. And then I would go out at night, have dinner and then go out at night on the town, Music Row, and hit the scene and try to network. Oh, I said it, the bad word. Oh my gosh, network. I know, we're not supposed to say it. We're supposed to think of it as cultivating relationships. That's the point about networking. You're not marketing to people in the music business. You're just hanging out, cultivating relationships. And as we say on the gig, it's all about the hang. Is that person a good hang? Are they chill? Can they get along with everybody? Are they a diva? Do they have all these expectations, right? So that's the networking aspect. And we're going to talk about that in a minute here. But really, how do we not quit? Now, that's a great question. And although the times of today have made the business even more and more difficult, it feels like the odds keep stacking against us, just like the human spirit when it comes to natural disasters and whatever else we may face throughout the trials and tribulations of our lives. We don't give up. In that context, that's how I want you to think about being a career musician. You cannot give up. Now, that is a great point, which leads me to a wonderful young composer, Tangerine Bolton. Now, Tangerine has done some amazing work for Netflix and all kinds of other media companies. You're going to want to check her out. But she's on episode 160 of the Career Musician Podcast, so why not listen to the whole episode? But something she said, she started interning over at Hans Zimmer's place, and she met a lot of composers, obviously. Well, this is the part where that networking comes into play, but you have to kind of do it chill. When you're in a situation like that at Hans Zimmer's headquarters, and you're one of many composers, imagine that could feel overwhelming or give you some anxiety. But she just got in there. She started as a studio assistant, and then she worked her way up. But one of the things she said is that she always had her mind on the end goal, her end goal. She always had her head set on what is it that I'm trying to accomplish. And no matter the adversity she faced, and she talks about it in the episode, being a woman and a young woman, She faced many adversities in mostly a kind of a male-driven field at the time. She faced a lot of challenges, but she always kept her mind on the end result. I want to be a successful film, TV, multimedia composer, and that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I'm here to do, right? So we have to remind ourselves, really, that is the first reason as to why we shouldn't quit, or the first thing we could do to combat when we have those quitter feelings. Now, something that I failed to mention at the beginning of the episode is that January 17th, this past January 17th, 2025, was National Quitters Day. What? I didn't even know there was a such thing until my team helped me do some research and we found out National Quitters Day is a thing. And on the 17th of January, most people this is backed up with some statistics, quit their New Year's resolutions by the 17th. So that's 2 weeks and 3 days in. That's a lot, folks, but think about it. We've all set resolutions before, and to be honest with you, I don't think I really set resolutions anymore. I always try to make myself better than the last version of myself, right? So become the best version of you, and I do that throughout the year. So I try not to just squeeze it all into the top of the year in January, because then I know I'm going to set myself up for failure. So it's okay if you don't make your resolutions at the top of the year. Spread them out, man. Take your time, focus on one thing at a time. But that reminds me about what Tangeline was saying. She's like, look, she could have quit. She could have been like, you know what, this is too hard. I'm in LA. I'm dealing with a bunch of, maybe she was dealing with some misogyny, right? Dealing with a bunch of people who maybe are kind of looking down at me because I'm younger, thinking that my game isn't leveled up, when in fact it was just the opposite. She was crushing it. She's super talented and she put in the work. So she has all the skill sets. You know, she could have easily said, yeah, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to pack it in. But she didn't. And look where she is now. She's crushing it as a young female composer in the music industry. That's a big deal, okay? Something else that I want to talk about, number 2, when it comes to quitting and why you should quit and how to prevent yourself from quitting. Why should you quit? Well, number 2, the reason is there's too many people out there. There's too many musicians out there. The market is saturated. And that is true, my friends. That's a reason to quit. It's like, oh, there's just too much. I don't want to deal with all this. I don't want to deal with all these people. I don't want to try to prove myself, blah, 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 this and that. But how do you combat that? Okay, well, this reminds me of an episode with Leslie Odom Jr. Okay, you might know Leslie, and he's in episode 150 of the Career Musician podcast. But he said he had a mentor that told him, listen, so you came to LA. You're having a rough patch. I think he was somewhere around 30 or his early 30s. You can check out the episode. And he says, man, I was just struggling. I was an actor, but I really wanted to sing. And I couldn't figure out how to do it. I didn't know how to meet people, get out there. And his mentor just said to him, hey, have you tried everything? And Leslie's like, yeah, I've tried everything, man. Believe me. I've done it all. I've done it. And he's like, well, hold on a minute. Have you tried going down to the local coffee shop and maybe seeing if they would be interested in having a singer around their lunch hour or their busy hour when people are getting coffee? He's like, oh well, I guess, yeah, I guess I didn't do that. And then he did that. And then he did it again. And again and again. And he kept doing that with all kinds of different, opportunities that he saw around him. And you could start right there in your own little network, in your own vicinity, in your own environment. And that's exactly what Leslie Odom Jr. did. That's right. One of the stars of the classic Broadway Hamilton, but now also a music artist in his own right. And he's been doing that for a long time. I've played on a few of his albums. You can check that out as well. But man, he has been able to accomplish quite a bit as a creative person. So a singer, a Broadway play performer, an actor in lots of TV and film. And then also he has like this whole fashion side of what he does. I mean, it's absolutely 100% brilliant. All because he did not, quit. Now, he could have easily said, LA is hard. This is ridiculous. What am I doing? I can't pay my bills. I'm out, and go back home. But he didn't. He stuck to it. So number 2, the reason why you could quit or you should quit, market's saturated. Forget about this. This is ridiculous. Too much. There's too many, available options and not enough people wanting it, right? So supply and demand is out of balance. Too much supply, not enough demand. But the reason why he didn't is because his mentor said, have you tried everything? Yeah, I tried everything. Yeah, but have you tried this? Well, that's on the list of everything. And it turned out to be, it was one little thing. A lot of us would be like, I'm not doing that. That's crazy. That's not going to work. But you never know. Another one that comes to mind, Ed Sheeran. He was like, hey, I am going to sing my songs. I'm going to be a famous singer, songwriter, artist. That's what I want to do. And you know what? Even if I'm not famous and rich, I'm just going to do my songs because that's what I want to do. And he started busking on the streets. Right? So he was busking on the streets to strangers. And if you check his stuff out all over the internet and socials, he says, look, I was horrible, but I had to write a certain amount of songs before I started getting good. And he didn't quit. So these are just some examples of, not quitting. So folks, when you wake up in the morning and you say, you know what? I'm done with this game. This is ridiculous. The odds are stacked against us. This is a losing game. What am I doing? This is ridiculous. Absolutely. You're 1000% right. And guess what else is right? If I put one foot in front of the other, I will eventually get to my destination. It's the journey of a million miles starts with what? The first step, right? It's a marathon, not a sprint, okay? All these things. And remember something that I always talk about, consistently working on your craft leads to mastery. Okay, so we want to be masters of what we want to do. We want to be the dopest, illest rhymer in the game. Well, you can't get there if you don't put in the time that Dre, Snoop, and Eminem did, and whoever else you like, Kendrick, fill in the blank. Well, I want to be the best composer that the world has seen, John Williams and beyond. You got to put in the time, put it in consistently, but you cannot give up. Now, number 3, the third reason why you should quit and how to prevent quitting, goals. Goals suck the energy out of us, right? Why? Well, because sometimes we're so hell-bent on thinking about, man, this is my goal. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to do this. Your goals are so high, and I want you to set your goals high. Remember, if you shoot for the stars and beyond, you just might make it to the moon, right? You're trying to get to Mars, but maybe you'll get to the moon. And let me tell you something, getting to the moon is no small feat, my friend. So sometimes when we have these big goals, it weighs heavy on us because we feel like, I'm not going to, this is too much, blah, 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 blah. But guess what? I want to challenge you. You can do it. This is going to happen. You can make it happen. The only way, though, you can use these goals to your advantage is through those consistent efforts. Okay. Now, consistency compounds into results. We call that the compound effect. You ever work out for a couple weeks and you're like, man, the first day was rough. I know for me, this happens. I just got back into it as a partial New Year's resolution, but really a life resolution, a life goal. And my shoulders, oh man, I could feel the bones and muscles cracking and stuff. And I'm doing push-ups. I'm like, this is too much. By the third week of doing push-ups, I was like, wait a minute, I feel much better. Right? Because those results are compounding. I started to stretch prior and after my workouts, but not only that, my joints and muscles started getting stronger. So those compounded daily efforts, okay, gave me the result of, it doesn't hurt as much. And now I feel a little stronger. And it's the same thing in what we do with our careers. So keep your goals in mind. And yes, you can quit because that's a lot of pressure to live up under. But you have to remember to take small incremental steps towards those goals and you will achieve success. Now, to wrap this episode up, I want to talk about success and what it means to you because success has a different definition according to everyone. You could say if you're a financier and you're on Wall Street and you are in the game to make mega millions, perhaps you say, when I have a net worth of 100 million plus, then I'll feel successful. All right, well, that's a big goal. And if that's your definition of success, a monetary value, then hey, so be it. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? If you say, hey, I want to be the best, the greatest, fill in the blank, whatever it is, keep in mind, that's all subjective, right? There's no such thing as the best of anything because there's just different versions. How do you compare the empire that Bill Gates built to the empire that Steve Jobs built? Well, they're both empires of technology and they're both really cool. So it's not to say one is better than the other. Okay, so remember, success is defining what you do to keep you content and happy. Are you successfully living? Are you successfully loving your family and supporting your family? Are you successfully existing on a daily basis with some form of internal peace that you say, you know what? I'm creating music. I'm playing instruments. I'm singing songs for people. I'm edifying people's lives. That's success. And on that note, that's right, bam, I have to say this, subsidizing your talent is a real thing. It's okay if you think, oh man, I have this day job, so I'm not really successful in music. No, that's a bunch of bull. Because what you're doing is if you have another job in another sector, another field, and you're doing that job while you're doing your music job, what you're doing is subsidizing your musical talent. You're doing this other job so you can pay all the bills and not have that pressure mounting up on you on a daily basis. So that way, when you do get in the creative music zone, you're in the studio, you're on the stage, you're in the writing room, you are not overwhelmed by the monetary responsibilities. So remember these things, folks. It's really important that this year, when Quitter's Day actually just passed, January 17th, we're a little bit past that now. But you know what? If you're listening to this episode, you made it, because that means you didn't quit. Even by, what do you mean, Nomad? Yeah, listening to this episode of The Career Musician means that you're still actively motivated in pursuing your musical aspirations. So kudos to you. Woohoo! Rock on. Or as I like to say, rock and roll, R&B, and everything in between. So, my friends, do not quit. Just keep going, one step at a time. It will happen, right? Remember, the human spirit is resilient, and we always come back for that final round to make our dreams a reality. My name is Nomad, signing off for this episode 172 of the Career Musician Podcast. If you are new, please check us out on all the socials. If you've been around for a while, please don't forget to subscribe. If you're new, subscribe. Download your episodes, add us, follow us, do all the things that you know you got to do in this day and age. Hit the thumbnail, hit the bell, do the dance, whatever it is, because guess what? We got to spread the word, folks. And I am a true believer that there's enough for everyone to go around. We can all eat. This is a big world, but there's also lots and lots of resources. So please don't be shy. Share it. Hit me up on the DMs. Hit me up on the comments. Tell me what you want to hear me talk about. Tell me about the guests that you want to see on the show. And don't forget to go check out the over 170 some odd episodes that are already existing on the Career Musician Podcast. Make music your business with the Career Musician, where we help you get the gig, keep the gig, and go beyond the gig.